Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the comprehensive yet informal study of Wittgenstein's philosophical investigations. Matt and Kirk here. Uh, we were just, if you watched the last video, you'll notice that barely any time has passed. I'm sort of segmenting these off for the sake of just uploading them on YouTube. It seems easy just to go one by one. They're numbered nicely, neatly. Average analytic philosophy experience. Anyway, yeah, getting to the material. Last time we were in this investigation, Wittgenstein's really doubling down, it seems, on this idea that philosophical meaning comes from basically algorithms, that following instructions, getting an input, doing an output. After there's some like mediating steps, all in the form of language. So, um, yeah, okay, so that's where we're at. But I mean, he does say it's a primitive language, but he also says that you know that's where meaning is. It's at home. So that's the big controversial, for me at least, the take. So now we're on number three, so we can continue where we just left off with there. Kirk, do you want to read or no?
No.
Alrighty, so I will continue on then with investigation number three. Augustine, we might say, does describe a system of communication. Only not everything that we call language is this system, and one has to say this in several cases where the question arises: will that description do or not? The answer is yes, it will, but only for this narrowly circumscribed area, not for the whole of what you were purporting to describe. It is as if someone were to say, playing a game consists in moving objects about on a surface according to certain rules. And we replied, you seem to be thinking of board games, but they're not all the games there are. You can rectify your explanation by expressly restricting it to those games. Okay, this is interesting. This is kind of similar to what I brought up last time, right? Because I was
This is
sort
kind
of
of what you broke up on my end.
um, I was saying that this is interesting because what he talks about here, saying there's multiple kinds of games, you know, which is I think another way of saying there are multiple contexts in which language functions, and just in which we use language. Uh, Maybe it doesn't work in the same way, but it does work when you like he says explicitly restrict it to those games. Which is kind of what I was getting at before when we were in investigation number two, when he says philosophical notion of meaning is at home in the primitive idea of way language functions, and then he brings up this primitive
Is that what?
example.
Sorry, you broke up again.
Oh, um, is it happening on the recording too? I hope not. Anyway, um,
You said
Wittgenstein,
meaning is that something?
yeah, meaning. So Wittgenstein in the second investigation says that meaning is at home in the primitive idea of the way language functions. But then I brought the point of
Is that
like,
home?
yeah, at home, yeah. Um,
Okay.
and then um, and then I was saying, well, we're not only in primitive, or what he's calling primitive situations. Language isn't just receiving instructions and getting or producing outputs, right? It's a bit more, I think sort of complicated and reflective. And then I brought up the example of look at what we're doing now. We're doing philosophy, and no, so maybe this is where the famous Wittgenstein
Of
stuff.
low what?
We're doing philosophy. Is I don't. Hello, is this working? Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, you said you brought up the famous example of la something.
Of Wittgenstein's sort of like anti-philosophy. Um,
No, but you said something la.
I don't know. What I meant to say is that um, it's the, what could be happening here is that Wittgenstein could be sort of like getting to this point that maybe all of philosophy is maybe some sort of linguistic confusion, because he seems to be basing the notion of meaning in this primitive
Okay.
situation in which we follow instructions. Um, Now, I find it interesting that at the end of the third investigation, he says that you know playing a game consists of moving objects about on a surface according to certain rules, just like how it was happening in the second investigation with the builders and the assistant. But he kind of acknowledges that there's more happening, right? There's more than just board games. So that I think maybe we'll explore what kind of language game, like something like philosophy or something, is. I don't know. That'll come in the future, but yeah, he seems to be acknowledging that there is a greater context in which language happens. But I don't know, because he also says the philosophical notion of meaning is at home in the primitive idea of way language functions. So I don't know. There's this kind of back and forth where I don't know if he's gonna like double down or triple down at that point, I guess, of saying, okay, well, language is, instruction following, and you can have certain games in which there are certain kinds of instructions, or if he's going to say there are different linguistic contexts outside of which, or in which there are things outside of the game, outside of this, moving objects around based on instructions or certain rules. So um, yeah, I don't know. We'll see what he says. Do you have anything to add, Kirk, or no?
No?
All right. Well, then that's it for this. We'll see you next time for the fourth investigation. See you then. Bye bye.